Welcome to part 2. We're going to be talking about Miles, Sam, Lainey, and Ella walking to the mall. We're trying to order them based on who walked the farthest, so instantly we know that it's from greatest to least. So remember, we're looking at people, so we should be doing names here, so I don't want any numbers as the answers. Miles walked 4 5/10, which we know, 4 over 5, which is 8/10. Sam walked 2/3 of a mile, which we should have remembered from our benchmark fractions, is 6/10 repeating. We have Lainey, who has walked half of a mile. And then we have Ella, who has walked 875 thousandths of a mile. I'm going to go ahead and put my placeholders in. Remember, with 6 repeating, it's going to be just 6 repeating. So it's going to be 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, all the way until infinity. But now that we have our placeholders in, it's very easy to tell who walked the farthest. Ella obviously has first place, quickly followed by Miles, and then Sam, and then Lainey. We're going to be talking about a science project now. We're talking about Jose, and we're looking at the water from greatest to least. So I'm going to do G to L. And then we're going to talk about the plants. Plant A is 1 4/10. Plant B is 9/10. So you can do the math, but just know it's also just 9/10. And C is 4 over 3. If you did the math by yourself, you start on 1 3/10 repeating. And this one's pretty straightforward. There's not even any placeholders because we can just go plant A first, plant C next, and plant B has the least. We're going to be putting these numbers on a number line. I know that this from earlier is 8 75/100. I know this can be 1 25/100. And these are percents. We didn't talk about them in class, but you should remember, how do we change from a percent to a decimal? If you said divide by 100, you're absolutely correct. This in decimal form is 1 800. This in decimal form is 95/100. So now let's put it on a number line. I know 1 25/100 is halfway between 1 and 1 5/10, because 25 cents is half of 50 cents. I know that 6/10 should be right around over here, because it's after 5/10, but not, bigger than 1. That's supposed to be a D, by the way. I wrote a B. 1 25/100. Oh, I already did that. So now we have 875 thousandths. That's going to go right about over here, which is A, because we still need to save room for 95/100, which is right over here, F. So I needed to make it clear that was a D. We have 8/10, which is basically right over here, basically almost touching 0 because it's so close. Last but not least, we have 1 800, which would be right here, pretty close to E as well. 1 as well. So we should have C, D, A, F, E, and B. Now for the fun part, converting fractions, decimals, and percents. So basically it doesn't make it very clear what you want. So you should probably assume that if you have a fraction, we want the decimal and the percent. Lucky for you, these are all benchmark fractions. 3 8/10 should be 375 thousandths, or 37 5/10%. We have a percent, so you probably want a fraction and a decimal. This is going to be 30 over 100. also known as 3/10. And then decimal is going to be 3/10. And you got that by dividing by 100. This is a decimal, so you probably want a fraction and a percent. 6/10, also known as 3/5. If you change it to a percent, your answer should have been 60%. This, oh look, we're so lucky. Fraction should be 3/8. Decimal should be 375 thousandths. 75, just think about 75 cents, so it should be 3/4. Or as a percent, it should be 75%. Last but not least, we have 24, which is 4/5. That is 8/10, or 80%. You should know how to change from fraction to decimal to percent, so I just kind of zoomed past these. Okay, so when it tells you to classify the following numbers, please make sure you're going to the smallest thing. Notice how we don't have any natural counting numbers? That's because basically whole numbers are the same thing as natural counting numbers, minus the 0. So I'm just going to go ahead and do these. This is a whole number, because there's no negative or positive. 9 5/10, because there's a decimal. I know that it's going to be right over here. We have -2 1/3, fraction, so I know. 9/3, don't get fooled by the fraction. 9/3 is actually equal to 3. So the smallest it can go is right here. 0 is 0. -20/5, if you do the whole top in, bottom out, is actually -4. So it would go right here. We have 4 71 thousandths, or 71 hundredths. We have 11. And then there's a decimal here, but you shouldn't get tricked. It should just be 19, -19. Last but not least, we need to figure out the numbers by checking all that apply. So it's very similar to this, how 16 is a whole number and an integer and a rational. So we should start by the biggest circle and then go smaller. Is this a rational number? Yes. Rational number? Yes. Rational number? Yes. Yes and yes. Is it an integer? Yes. Even though there's a decimal, it's equal to 7. Therefore, yes, this is an integer. This has a decimal, and it doesn't really go smaller. It's not a whole, complete number. Therefore, this is not an integer. This has a fraction, but don't be fooled. If you do top in, bottom out, it equals -3. So this is an integer. This is a fraction, not an integer. So honestly, there's no point in even checking, because if it's not an integer, it's not a whole number. So for these 2 rows, I'm done. Is -8 a whole number? No. Is 7 a whole number? Yes. Is -3 a whole number? Not really. If you're kind of confused on this, I would say think about the pink boxes that we used, or even better, go on the website. It's a couple videos above this, but there's a cute little song it sings, and it basically sings the rules to you. And it's really annoying, but it's gonna get stuck in your head, and it'll be very helpful. I hope this video was helpful too. I know I went kind of fast, but you can always pause the video and ask, replay it or something if you need help. Or I will be taking questions on Monday. But thank you for your time, and have a nice day.